what is it about Monday that people don't like? It can't be talking Racine. Everybody loves us.
Ooh, look out.
This is Mr. George Myers.
Good morning.
This is Mr. Jim Spodek. And I'm Dr. Ken Jorgen still, your host.
Yeah,
Well,
looks like it.
gentlemen, we have a thing to discuss here this morning. We got some news in the Journal Times. It's been, I think, a little over a week ago. Our Director of Development, is that her official title here in Racine? Director of Development?
City Development, yeah.
Director of City. Amy Connolly, who was brought on board by former Mayor John Dickert, was she prevailed in a lawsuit that she had going with Tinley Park, Illinois, her former employer. Now, Tinley Park had sued Ms. Connolly because she had done something that they didn't like. And so there was a lawsuit that ensued, and she ended up prevailing just recently to the tune of $360,000, according to the Journal Times. Now, we have to dig a little bit further into this story. The allegation that she leveled against Tinley Park in response to their suit against her was that their motivations were racist. Now, basically what happened was Tinley Park was in need of and desirous of developing their downtown area. And they had a plan for certain blocks of having a new developer come in with some commercial space on the first floor and then housing up above that, apartments and so on.
Fits in with the downtown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And it's commercial with the
Yeah.
we have
little
close
shops.
to our Riverside,
Right.
close to the
Well, Main
station.
Street, I mean, that was
The Main Street Bridge and Safety
was,
Bridge,
and
right
even
there.
uptown too. You know, you've got a business downstairs, and upstairs
Right.
you got living quarters. Well, that was their dream, but Amy Connolly was unable to get that project off the ground as the developer down there, or director of development. So she got together with Buckeye Development, and we're not just speculating here. There are emails and all kinds of articles in support
Which
of
is
this.
a problem right there. You bring an
Emails?
Ohio group up Buckeye. How are you going to do
Yeah,
something in
right.
Illinois with a name like Buckeye? Anyway,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, they apparently conspired to change some language in the city ordinance. Now, the city ordinance called for commercial development on the first floor. But this Buckeye development was not interested in that because apparently that would not make a certain amount of tax credits available to them. And tax credits, as you may or may not know, are a very important part of development. I mean, this can be millions of dollars changing hands. So they got together and they brainstormed a little bit and they changed one word in the city ordinance from required to be commercial development on the first floor to allowed to be commercial development on the first floor, which completely changed the direction of the project. Once people found out that that had happened, that's why they sued Amy Connolly, because she had changed the ordinance and they wanted a certain kind of development down there. Well, in response,
There
Go ahead.
was a little bit. They didn't sue her specifically for changing it. What happened is they changed it, so the developer went in figuring, okay, now I can put what I want into it and make all this extra money off the federal subsidy.
right.
So they get all invested and they got the thing going. They spent money, and then they find out the fraud, and the change of the ordinance. So now the developer says, "Hold on a second, I want my money back." And so the town says, Tinley Park says, "Okay, no, it's Amy
her
Connolly
fault.
that did it. It's
Yeah.
her fault."
Right.
So that we want her to pay what the developer is suing for.
But subsequent to-
I think it's right. I think the town was right. I mean,
Well, what happened is I think
Violated.
they actually ended up paying Buckeye, and I want to say somewhere in that $4 million range to
Go away.
basically go away. There also was $75,000, I believe, that the city was responsible for that came out of city coffers that they were saying Amy should be responsible for, and that's what they sued for. And then it went, obviously it's going into court, and of course attorneys were involved. And I think at the end here,
well, there's a little step that comes in there when it goes to court. What do Amy Connolly and developers start yelling?
racism.
Racism.
Threw that race card down.
Pull out the race card.
Well, is it racist to not want low-income housing on the first floor of a community development, or is it racist to assume that only a particular race would be involved in the low-income housing?
No, that's a
Where
good
is the
question.
racism?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it was people came to these meetings and spoke, so we don't want, these people to come in. And, there was, and I'm sure that they spun this thing away from Amy Connolly, their attorneys did, who I think did a fairly good job of that, spun it into this where she was the upholder of, of not allowing racism to leak into Tinley Park, and she was holding steadfast to her beliefs. It was all BS, because what it came down to is you changed the zoning ordinance and you were in violation of that, and that's what they were suing, but they threw the racism in to muddle up the waters. And now at this end she's talking like, I fought the racism in Tinley Park, which is absolute BS. That was nothing, had nothing to do with it in the first part. What happened was that she basically changed I think we actually had contacted someone down in Tinley Park, who was reporting on this for a number of, story time, and there were a few different
Well, it was kind of an independent media outlet.
Yeah, and they actually sent back a 5-page report on actually what happened. And, one of the things that he brought up, and I kind of wanted to read this, was, you should stress repeatedly, the village of Tinley Park told Buckeye over and over again that they wanted to build this housing project they had at the commercial street level, and the zoning required. Buckeye refused to build a commercial space in the zoning that the zoning code required. That's because if they had the commercial space, then Buckeye would not rake in the hugely lucrative tax credits they wanted to mine from this project. This was never about building housing for low-income people. This was about Buckeye being a predatory developer that is skilled at exploiting tax credits.
And he's very concerned here. I thought it was interesting. He says later he's hoped the people of Racine understand this, and which I think is great. But what I do think it relates to Racine is that Machinery Road developed a lot along the same lines.
Exactly.
And it was interesting that the people that were supporting it, particularly in the downtown area, did not want it to be a low-income housing thing. They wanted it to be a regular housing thing.
Right. Market value.
Yeah, market. Yeah, and the problem was that I think that probably helped kill the project, because Rodney Blackwell didn't have the money to go in and develop it like that. Plus, at the time it was developing, remember, this is long before the Foxconn promise came along the line. We have tons of vacant housing in Racine. Yeah. Some of very, very good housing, particularly along the north side. Single-family homes that have been sitting vacant. Very nice homes sitting vacant for years. And now we're going to put in a new market rate apartment buildings. It might go for $1,000, $2,000 a month. They're going to be in that range.
Well, that's what they would ask for.
That's what it costs to build it.
Yep.
Yeah. You said it would go for that. When you say go for that, it means that somebody rents it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm
saying it would be available for that much. It might not necessarily rent for that much.
Yeah. Well, because there's lots of housing around in Racine, particularly around that area, for a lot cheaper than that.
Right.
That's good housing.
Right.
So
that whole project.
So that's why it failed. Once we ran into the Tinley Park thing, where they didn't want.
George, they're constantly, the city development, we've got to develop. You don't have to develop anything. Let the private sector develop. Where does this that the city is the developer now?
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. How does this come about?
Really new. Yeah.
And now all of a sudden Amy Connolly is a developer, and this RDA. We don't need to develop. This is taxpayer money. Make sure the roads are cleaned and plowed, the garbage picked up, the alleyways are accessible.
Just the name RDA should stick up,
exactly.
a warning antenna.
And
what Redevelopment Authority. Wait a second. Why is the city even involved in that?
In this whole thing?
Well, that's what happens when you elect a mayor who fancies himself a developer.
Yeah. Well, and look, Machinery Road's a perfect example. Talking about fraud and deception, that thing is ladled with it. One of the things that now I want to kind of is Kevin DuJan.
DuJan.
And he's author of Shut Up and a few other books. He's fairly extensively written. He's in Tinley Park. One of the things he brings up here is the game that the media plays is that one reporter will write, and what he's talking about is how it's twisted into this racism in Tinley Park from a zoning ordinance change that was illegal. But he says the game that the media plays is that one reporter will write a story that is false but reinforces the narrative they want to tell. A lot of times they do this with the omission, like leaving out the key information that Amy Connolly tampered with the zoning code. Then other reporters will cite the first report and leave the other things out or twist what is there, even though further to get the story they want to tell. They keep citing each other like this. They refuse to report anything that contradicts what they've already written. They protect each other and reinforce each other, like spiders building a web.
You know, I
And
had
that is
I had a
very
question
true.
about you. Yeah, I saw the article come out in Journal Times. I did not read it. How did the Journal Times cover it?
That was
Did they give the
again-
real story, or did they,
Right.
did they just...
Well, here's an example. When they want
beautify
to tell
the-
something, a story. Now, if we go back to the bar lawsuit, they came out and broke down exactly who got what, how much. It was $4.3 million settlement.
Which lawsuit?
The bar lawsuit, there was
The discrimination suit that the
discrimination
minority
suit,
bars-
it was-
Okay. Yeah.
But they came down to spell everything out. Each of them got $15,000. Well, in this one, none of them broke down how much the attorney fees got, and I can guarantee you that $360,000 went to attorney fees, probably almost all of it. But the thing about it is, they brought the racism in, but they didn't bring in this whole, they
About
wanted-
where Amy Connolly changed.
yeah, they kind of kept
Yeah,
this
they
thing
kind
in
of
its own
avoided
box.
that,
Yeah,
yeah.
they.
No, you're talking about the Journal Times article?
Well,
You
no,
did the
all
same
of
thing?
Well, not just the Journal Times, but the newspapers down in Tinley Park too.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
understand that. I understand
No,
that.
the Journal
Tinley Park
Times
did. I
and
just
ended
wonder-
up here.
I
They
just
made
wonder
it
what
look
they did
like
up here.
it was all a racism issue when it had nothing to do with real
So
racism.
the Journal Times fell in with the crowd when it came to
right.
following.
And they just followed
following the
the
leader.
suit. But what happens unless you really understand what actually went on? And we've got some clips, and I'm going to play.
Mayor Simon, the one thing I do want noted by the trustees is that the civil servants who are employees of our town put us in this position. I am a business owner and I have accountability in my business. Someone needs to be held accountable for the dilemma they've created and the lack of trust that now exists between you and us. Because I will tell you, there's none. There's people sitting at the table because they failed in economic development to recruit and retain viable businesses. They failed to bring people here that would spend money to be part of our downtown. We lowered the bar. Someone had a personal agenda to get their building built, their plan executed on. They went with their own personal agenda. And someone needs to be held accountable coming out of this meeting.
I've never heard of anything like it. I've never heard of an elected board abdicating its responsibility to an unelected volunteer commission who then just does whatever they want without any input from the elected officials or any input from the community at all. So now the board has no power to vote on this project that nobody wants. It's crazy. They've given away their power. That's nuts. I've never heard of anything dumber than that. I don't even think that's legal. Can an elected board give away the power the people gave to them to represent them to that one woman or a board of non-elected people? Who knows? Well, somebody has a like you said, a personal agenda here. Somebody, I don't know if it was her or somebody else on the planning commission, put that into a big bill of stuff where it would get lost.
They knew that it would benefit these people without mentioning these people.
Right. Without mentioning, they knew, absolutely they knew it would benefit this housing development.
Well, you don't yourself have to say that it was racist. You can say, well, other reports have inferred that this was based on racism.
Right, and there may have been
I mean,
some
that's
in there, but that wasn't
strong enough language.
that wasn't the basis of the lawsuit.
No, not at
they
all.
were able to throw that in there and then say, to the Justice Department, there's racism over here, and then we'll have to investigate. Well, obviously the municipality doesn't want to get into a racist thing, so let's just pay her off and get rid of her, and it's quicker and it'll be over. But then we got her.
Yeah.
Well, we couldn't pass up an opportunity like that. Now with John Dickert as our mayor,
And that's another thing, why was she brought here? Why wasn't there, if we're looking for a city development director, why not scan the whole country, for crying out loud? You're telling me...
Was there a search done? I don't recall a search
it was
being
basically
done.
Amy Connolly got hauled up here, but reason why. She was, there were some, she was... in a precarious situation, which made it okay. You come to where are you going to get hired when you're being sued by your municipality for changing an ordinances in that municipality? Who's going to jump out there and want to buy you? You know. So what happens is you're somewhat damaged goods. You come here, you keep your mouth shut, especially about Machinery Row.
Well, I remember being on the floor there. I was in attendance when the whole discussion came up, and it was exactly that. They say, "Well, Amy Connolly, yeah, she got sued, but it's an infighting type of thing."
It was done on a technicality.
Yeah,
Technicality, just like Rodney Blackwell when he was being
Technicality.
sued by over and over again. Don't worry, it's only partnerships. They're just ugly when they break up. Well,
Yeah.
Or when they
that
took
was- yeah,
away
yeah,
when
that's
they
right.
took away Thomas Holmes' license.
Yeah.
It was just a technicality.
Yeah, technicality. They went to the appeals court. They came back, and
Yeah.
of course, they had to give him back his license. I mean, it's our government. And,
Yeah,
and
you always downplay the
representation.
things that you do wrong, and you make everything else that anybody else has done the least bit wrong sound absolutely horrific. It's a game that I'm quite frankly sick of.
Yeah.
So why don't we move on to a different topic? We've got another one here, and this pertains to the village board out in Mount Pleasant. Oh boy, yeah. There's some background to this too. You guys remember that military museum out on I-94, right? I mean, you used to be able to drive down, and on the west side of I-94, down at Pleasant Prairie, you'd see a helicopter and a Sherman tank.
There was a big
I think
big
there
old
was an
military
airplane down
thing.
there. Yeah, it looked like a military salvage yard is what it looked
Yeah.
like. I always thought it was like stuff for sale, and I guess it was.
Probably was.
But it turns out, at least when the people of Pleasant Prairie wanted it to go away, they said, no, this is a museum, and it has a certain value. Well, Pleasant Prairie came in and they did an eminent domain thing on the people who owned that, and their name happens to be Mark and Joyce Sunday. They did eminent domain on them. They said, this is going to be a commercial development. You got to go. So they kind of gave them the bum's rush. And then a lawsuit ensued. And they were represented by an attorney by the name of Alan Markovitz. Now, that's a name that comes up every once in a while in this area. Alan Markovitz took up their cause and sued Pleasant Prairie and got a $3.9 million settlement for the Sunday family, plus $160,000 in legal fees.
No, I'll bet you that's relocation fees too. Relocation costs, find a new
Oh,
place.
sure. Yeah.
Cost of
Absolutely.
moving, all that type of stuff. That's what it'll be. And where have we heard about that before?
Right.
Yeah,
Machinery
okay,
Row is in
so
those,
we know the game.
Right.
Racine's not it's the first time it's been played. Apparently Pleasant Prairie did the same thing. Okay, so
Now, flash forward to just recently, and once again the Sunday family's involved. It's a piece of land out adjacent to the UPS center out there in Sturtevant, Highway H and Highway 11.
Right.
And Mount Pleasant, I guess who the heck wants to widen that road? It can't be Mount Pleasant because the land is in Sturtevant.
I don't know how it works out, but
Or
they
that
want to
it's-
widen that intersection apparently, or at
I don't
least
know
a
if it's
little
the
bit.
Foxconn project or what, but Mount
Well, it has
Pleasant
nothing
got
to do with-
involved
Yeah.
in buying that piece of land,
Right.
which was about 2 acres, and it was owned by the Sundays, Mark and Joyce, and it was appraised at a value of about $156,000. And the Mount Pleasant bought this land in Sturtevant for $840,000, wasn't it?
800,000, a little over
A
800,000.
little over $800,000. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
They made a
$400,000 an acre.
yeah. And it turns out that only the width of a traffic lane was needed
Right.
off of their property.
But now Mount Pleasant has it
But
back
who was
up.
the attorney that represented them in that
It's
transaction?
Funny, it's Alan Markovitz.
Alan Markovitz.
So Alan Markovitz.
Oh, wait a minute. No, wait a minute. You would think that he represented the Sundays because he
No.
got such a good deal for them. But who was he actually representing?
Mount Pleasant.
Mount Pleasant.
against the Sunday?
Yeah.
Well,
Or
in negotiation with the
Negotiating.
Sundays.
Now, wait a sec. You just won
Wow.
3.9 to move in Pleasant Prairie, but now you're on the flip side of this.
Yeah. You're negotiating
Now-
on the other side of it, yeah.
So the question is, who are you really representing if you get from the village of Mount Pleasant $800,000 for land which is valued at $154,000 for a client that you recently represented? I don't know.
Well, here, let's go just one step further.
I don't know if that's a conflict of interest or not. It just seems kind of.
Well, how do you pay $800,000 for this corner lot? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just absolutely mind-boggling to me that you would pay that kind of money.
2 acres.
And then
They're only
Mount
paying
Pleasant-
$50,000 an acre for the farmland.
Well, this is prime real estate.
I
But
guess.
here's the thing. Alan Markovitz also was involved in Machinery Row, if we go back far enough, and he represented, I believe, Olson and Fagan. And then when either, I think it was Olson or Fagan, wrote a letter saying, hey, how can you be representing in Mount Pleasant and some of the activity you're doing and representing me against the city, another municipality? There may be a conflict of interest. He wrote a letter. I swear to God, it's 2 days later. I no longer will be representing you.
I quit. I'll send you your records.
Yeah, basically. So there's way more goes on here. This is way bigger than conflict of interest.
I think it's called a good old boy system.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I tell you what, I think what's
something like
happened
that.
here is it comes all the way from Madison all the way down here. Like, no one's going to get in trouble for doing illegal activity. I swear to God, I think that's what it is.
Well, nobody
No.
that's connected will.
Right, exactly. All of us will.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you're in with the in crowd, the good old boy system, you're protected. You got people way up there, way over there.
Yeah.
A lot of powerful
Law
people. are gonna
enforcement
Well,
be-
has to
because
look the
I
other
know
way.
you're a good guy. I know you're a good
Yeah,
guy.
right.
You had no evil intention. You had no criminal intention. So we can overlook
And
this.
we can do the 800,000. Don't worry about it. I got connections. We'll get you the.
But if you're
800,000.
some poor slob that sells a used car and you mark down the price that you sold the car for $500, so the guy buying it doesn't have to pay as much sales tax.
Whoa.
Oh, your hide will be out on the barn door.
Put the cuffs
Put
on.
the cuffs on. Absolutely.
But I really do believe, I think this whole Foxconn has just spurred on just a litany of criminal activity, way beyond what would have been acceptable 20 years ago. I mean, I think it's just, we just
Did
do
you
it.
say a litany of criminal activity?
Yeah, there you go. That could be.
Maybe I heard you wrong.
No, you heard me right.
There's another word, litany.
Yeah.
Is that
No, it's litany.
litany? Okay.
Yeah. I used it correctly.
But, yeah.
No, I'm just telling you, it's unbelievable. But here it is, law enforcement basically looks the other way. If it's white collar, we're not going to look at it. We look at the
Well, it's just the right white collars.
right. I mean, it really has turned into a really almost like a
Well, and that's, you're looking at the heart of the expense of government.
yeah.
I mean, why are our taxes so high?
Well, it'd be a lot cheaper if there was no graft, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you
I mean, if it really ran like a government.
And I'm talking about if you really just had the people in there that you need. I mean, we don't need Amy Connolly and her salary and her benefits all in the city hall budget. If you got rid of all the people that we don't need with those types of salary, you'd be surprised how much taxes would come down.
Well,
We'd
not
probably
only-
get money back at the end of the
And here's
year.
the thing, George. Let the free enterprise operate. I mean, I truly believe in capitalism that it seeks its own level. It will straighten itself out.
Yeah.
I mean, 800,000 for this corner lot. I mean, how does that? I just can't understand how you could come to that kind of price for
I wonder how
less
much-
than 2 acres.
I wonder what the
I mean, even in the most prime piece.
what was
of
the
property,
assessed value for taxation? I wonder.
156,000.
156,000.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, I
Well,
mean,
maybe he owes back taxes. We should look into that.
I don't- I don't-
Didn't you say they're selling the part they don't want back?
Well,
Of
yeah,
the
the
land?
Mount Pleasant
It's
now
on the-
is saying
it's on the market, yeah.
It's on,
It's on the market back, and they want 500,000
Now,
for it.
Right.
how are
Now-
they the real estate?
Well, they have to. They can't just sell it back for the established value of it, which was 160,000, something like that.
Yeah, 154, I think.
Yeah, that wouldn't look good.
No.
So we're going to sell it back for 500. Now, what's your chances of selling something for 500 that's worth 136? Probably not real good.
Now, why would they do that?
Why did you? DOT could have came in and just taken out that
you got
chunk of land they needed.
You
Is
got
it
caught,
just a
you're caught in,
face-saving,
in the friendship
effort?
trap. It's
Yeah.
like the good old boy system. That's the way it works. And if they leave it there long enough, people will forget. It'll finally go to sale for 160,000, whatever.
I mean,
it would be.
I just
and
mind-boggling the amount of money and the amount of far as I'm concerned, graft in
Well,
Mount
it's-
Pleasant.
yeah, it's
Well,
been-
Jim,
it's
look
gross
what
mishandling
they went through that
taxpayer money, which is gross.
intergovernmental fund, the $10 million
Yeah.
in Machinery Row. I mean, they went through that's $10 million. We're looking at 800,000 here. That's peanuts compared to 10 million. You know,
I agree.
It's just the money.
But you know,
flows, and
George,
it
at
goes-
some point, you can't just keep loading up that credit card. Sooner or later is a day of reckoning. When that comes, it's just going to be catastrophic. People in Mount Pleasant, I truly believe they're just unfettered debt that's going to be
Well, it's a big bet. You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a
They've been
huge
struggling it for decades.
decades.
They've
you've
been worrying about their
indebted
taxes.
your children to these decades of debt
Yeah.
in this area. And what would happen to property values when you've got this huge amount of debt owed in a little municipality of 26,000 people?
Well, a lot of the people who have been living there are leaving. I mean, because they see the property
kicked out.
Well, not only that, but I mean, property values have gone up now. I mean, there's
Yeah.
this big thing of hopefulness and
Yeah.
excitement about this development.
The-
So
the
people
pro-
are coming in. Look at the values of the properties in Racine. I mean, houses are selling like hotcakes.
Well, they're going up. I think a lot. Some of it's speculation.
Yeah,
Because I mean,
course
when
it is.
I hear about Foxconn, you know, outside of this room here, it's just it's all this good stuff is coming to Racine, and I don't even say anything. I just say good. I hope it does.
I hope it is,
I
and I
hope
hope
their
it's-
hopes and dreams and their speculation and their all that comes about because they're looking at prices going up. Their business, their shops will fill up with customers. Everything's going to be hunky dory. If that's the way it works out, that's fine. But I'd like to address this thing you say about people moving. The problem is, where do you move to?
Yeah.
We saw what's going down in Tinley Park. Same thing. We saw what's going on in Pleasant Prairie. Same thing.
Yeah.
Saw what's going on in Racine, Mount Pleasant. Same thing.
well, you go anywhere in the country, George, and it's like that.
It is amazing how similar it is. This is a nationwide problem in the United States.
Yeah.
That's why when I look back at that Sandy Widener campaign, and I remember telling you, I said, if Sandy Widener gets elected, this will be truly unique in the country of the United States of America, because you don't see this anymore.
Yeah.
And we didn't see it here.
Yeah.
I'm close. We didn't see it.
Still don't see it anymore.
Yeah, well, somewhere along the line, some group of people, I would have liked it to have been Racine, but somebody's got to decide we're going to change the way we do business.
Yeah.
Quote unquote,
Yeah.
in the government itself. And if we can do that and we can clean it up and we can get the good old boy stuff out and the backslapping and the pocket watching and all this type of stuff taken care of, you can have a town that it's easy to pay taxes in, it's easy to do business in, and life can
And
be a
just
lot more fun.
pleasant to live in.
Yeah, it can be fun. You know? It doesn't have to be a constant
But
struggle.
like I've told you, this is going on all over the country. I go down to Kentucky and to Tennessee and areas like that, and you get into these little towns, and they've got something there that they consider to be a tourist attraction. And they're hanging their hat on the fact that that tourism is going to come flooding in. People are going to want to take part in this. It's exciting. But they don't realize the town 30 miles down the road, 60 miles down the road, 100 miles down the road in any direction and all over the country all have that same illusion that they're going to have these tourist dollars flooding in.
We're all
And
going to go visit each other's towns and get rich.
Yeah. We saw it here with the Arena Project. That's what
right.
that was based on, tourism.
It's amazing. Somewhere along the line, somebody's
dream.
got to get to work and produce some things so that we have
Yeah.
something that we can enjoy and actually live off of it. We can't just go visit each other and buy from each other and have affluence. That's not the way economics works.
I'll give you $1,000 for that car if you promise to buy it back next week for
that's right.
$1,500.
There you go.
We was making a good living on that car, George.
Yeah.
Well, that's about it for these subjects, huh? Did we want to explore anything else, or should we give them
No,
the
I
coming
think that's
attractions? We do have some coming attractions. We've got a thing coming up next week. And what the heck was it?
Catalyst of Racine, and downtown being the catalyst of Racine.
Oh, that's right.
our new
Not the
archway.
St. Louis Arch, but the Racine Arch.
Yeah.
And
We'll do a little digging in on that.
boy, talk about hanging your hat on something. Tourist attraction, historic downtown Racine. They're still trying to beat that same dead horse that they were beating on with the Arena Project. Come and visit historic Racine. Well, what in the devil is left of historic Racine down there? It's either been torn down, covered up, or it's in a state of decay. You tell people to come and see historic Racine, they're going to get down there and they're going to go, what the heck is this? You know, and they're not going to go and promote the community like you want them to. They're going to say, we went to historic Racine, there was nothing there. I got a kringle and went to the beach. 15 minutes later, I was done, you know. Anyway, we're going to talk about that next week. We don't want to get too far into it tonight or this morning or whatever this is we're in right now. We always have a time warp. I still haven't gotten used to that. You want to say good morning to everyone, George?
Yeah, good morning from the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, morning.
Good morning. Have a pleasant day.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.